A recent report from blockchain and analytics company Chainalysis reveals bad actors took advantage of the Ethereum Merge to make millions of dollars. And joining us now to discuss is Eric Jardin, Cybercrimes research lead at Chainalysis. Eric, welcome to the show. So walk us through the key findings of this report and tell us what was most surprising.
Sure. Good morning, and thanks for having me on. So what we did was try to categorize the scam ecosystem on Ethereum, breaking it into merge-related scams, non-merge-related scams, because we were interested in this question of whether or not bad actors might have been taking advantage of something like the Ethereum Merge, which is a big sort of focal point event. And lo and behold, that's exactly what we found. And we can get into lots of the specifics, but at a big, broad, sort of zoomed out level, the Ethereum Merge-related scams were able to pull in $1.2 million in and around the merge date on the 15th of September. And on the date of the merge, they were actually able to capture 92% of the Ethereum scam ecosystem revenues. So that would be about $905,000 on the day of the Ethereum Merge.
So how are people falling for these merge scams? How do they work, and what should people watch for?
So the merge scams operated a lot like traditional trust trade scams, those sort of ones where you get, I heard it mentioned earlier, you get pinged by Elon Musk or Vitalik on Twitter, and they're saying, hey, send me some Ethereum, I'll send you back double the amount. It's sort of a classic scam setup. In this case, they were capitalizing upon the branding of the merge. So that's really the differentiator. So the scam type per se was not particularly novel, although they were kind of embedding into the scam narrative the notion that to upgrade to the new proof of stake Ethereum, you needed to send money in. But more or less, it was the sort of scams we've seen before, the sort of doubling your money for free type approach.
Yeah, it never works out for me, Eric. Where exactly are these scams prevalent? What countries are most affected and why?
Right. So we looked into this question because we thought it would be interesting, not just to sort of say at a chain level what we were observing, but also that you may have differential effects across different jurisdictions. And we found, unsurprisingly in some ways, that many of the scams that we tracked and recorded, they affected single countries. So for example, 5 scams affected just one country apiece. And then we had some that were affecting upwards of 20 countries at the same time. If you dig down into the actual country level exposure, what we found was that relative to general engagement with scams on Ethereum overall, we found like Finland, Poland, Chile, Panama, and Vietnam were among those that most heavily sort of tilted toward merge-related scams during the month of September.
We don't know why, though.
So as we sort of discussed with our previous guest and many guests that have come on the show, we're sort of seeing a record in kind of crypto crime. Saw a record in October. They seem to be increasing. Is what you're observing in your report part of this general trend? Or, I'm just curious what your interpretation is of this. Why are we seeing this relative surge in hacks and other related crypto crimes?
Sure. Yeah, I would draw a pretty bright line distinction between scams and hacks. So we released a mid-year update back in July, and what we'd observed at that point was that scam revenues were actually down year to date by 65%. So it was still at $1.6 billion worth of scamming activity on chain, but that was 65% lower than 2021. And so what we have observed with, say, Ethereum in September is in some ways a continuation of that pattern. Generally, this September was less than last September. However, the 15th in particular, the date of the merge scam, we used to see it just rocket up. And that's because of the sort of focal point nature of the Ethereum merge. You had sort of all the ingredients you would need for a sort of a scammer's dream. You had, a big change that created uncertainty, a major blockchain that was undergoing the chain, and a lot of publicity surrounding the event itself. And so those are sort of right to bring people into the system and see scammers succeed, which is exactly what we kind of observed during that particular run. And so I do think that what we're seeing with things like the merge and the scam-related activity is this sort of anomaly relative to what scams are doing overall this year. And again, scams and hacks are different. Hacks are way up. but scamming activity seems to be down due to bear market conditions.
The scammers are just like, this isn't worth it. Okay, so you're right. There's two different categories here. There's scams and there's hacks. But I'm just curious, like, if you could sort of give us the big picture. What is your main advice for prevention? I mean, on either of these, on scams and hacks. I mean, what are the sort of top line things that either exchanges or individuals or just like best practices that could avoid some of this going forward?
Sure. So in some ways, scams are a bit easier because they're a form of predatory cybercrime that relies upon people voluntarily giving up their money. They're not breaking into a system and exfiltrating it, as you'd see with something like a hack. And so in that sense, if people become more familiar with the ins and outs of the crypto environment, just through that educational process, they will learn about the sort of telltale warning signs that would say, this is probably a scam, you should probably avoid it. Exchanges are able also to use product solutions that would allow them to identify for users who are potentially, say, moving, in this case, let's say Ether off of the exchange into what ends up being a scam wallet. We can help, for example, identify those wallets for exchanges, in which will provide additional information for users so they would potentially be able to avoid scams. So in that sense, it's all about sort of avoidance, caution, avoiding things that seem too good to be true, all the sort of things that, if you take the most extreme scam examples that just are like, well, there's no way that this is possibly correct. Everything else in scam land is just sort of a gradation of that. It's sort of like, this really does not seem like it's a true sort of reward structure that could be sustainable, a reward structure that is plausible, that sort of thing. Hacks are totally different. Hacks are predatory cybercrimes where someone breaks into the system, either sort of commandeering a hot wallet server like your first guess, or through whatever other channel. And in those kind of environments, you have to sort of emphasize protection of cold storage of your tokens. If you're running on chain, you have to try to diversify. All of these sorts of steps are all that can be done. But if you're getting targeted and the hacker is serious, it's very hard to remain safe forever, because they only need to succeed once and you have to succeed every single time.